Hi, welcome to Box on the Box Rock and Celluloid, Bot Back for short, I'm Edward Box. So, going to review some metal. It's time to rank those albums. It's Judas Priest's turn. Obviously, Judas Priest just released Invincible Shield. I've had opportunity now to listen to it many times, so I think I can give a pretty good ranking of where I'm at the moment with my favourite Judas Priest albums. There are 19 studio albums. We're going to add in a wild card and make it around 20. Hopefully, Judas Priest will do 20 studio albums, but you just never know. So let's get it rolling. My first choice might be a surprise, my number 20 choice, because I think you'd expect another one at number 20. This isn't always the perceived wisdom, but it's Jugulator, the first album with Ripper Owens. I think the production's, obviously it's a bit dated, but it's good. Downing and Tipton did crunchy riffing on this. But the lyrics are really especially stupid. There's just simply no melody for me. Ripper, he's got a great scream, and he always did a really good job and does continue to do a good job of doing the classic Priest stuff. But I felt that was really what was missing with Rob leaving the band. Obviously, Priest are trying to keep track with the Machine Heads and Panteras of the world, but they really needed to release this album in '94. If Rob could have stayed, had a year out, and then done this album in '94, like a heavy album like this, but with Rob singing, that could have been a good thing. But it feels quite long, a lot of the arrangements as well. I've never totally got on board with Cathedral Spires. I do like Bullet Train. I think Bullet Train is a one track. Bloodstain maybe, but certainly Bullet Train, that's a great track, and that would work really well, in the context of the Halford times as well. But I just never quite could get into this. As well, the album art as well, really cool painting by Mark Wilkinson, but then pixelated and that crappy logo. My number 19 choice is Demolition, so most people don't like this album as much. My reason for picking this above Jugulator is I just think there's a bit more variety, there's a little bit more melody. I do quite like Lost and Found, Feed on Me, Close to You is really good. I quite like Subterfuge. Cyberface is quite interesting. There's some more interesting things on this. Again, there's just too many tracks. I think it's 13. One-on-one's pretty cool, but it just takes Machine Man's daft, Metal Messiah. It just takes a while to get going, and then it's just a difficult time for Priest. It's a difficult time for all those bands, and this is coming to the tail end of that Man Maiden that have already got back with Bruce with the Brave New World album, and of course it won't be long before Priest got back with Halford. But credit to Ripper, he kept the band going. He was really good live. That live Meltdown and that live Astoria are really good. And you watch the DVDs live, very good. Okay, so again, this might be quite a controversial choice at 18. I had a listen to the album again yesterday just to check that I do feel this way, and my number 18 choice is Redeemer of Souls. So a lot of people have a lot of love for this album and see this is Priest getting back on track after the sort of the epic Nostradamus. Some people call it Misfire. Richie Faulkner's first album, Breathing Life. My main issue with this album is the production and the mix. I feel that it lets down the songs a lot. I think there's too many songs. If you listen carefully, listen to a track like Down in Flames, when that guitar comes in, it's so sat on top of the mix. The balance is just all off, and it's very dry. If I was remixing this album, I would get the guitars just calm down a bit, get them a bit lower in the mix, a few dB down, as they say. I'd maybe, get Glenn to redo some, well, back then, probably not now, but redo some of his solos. I don't mind the drum sound so much. He's got an open sort of live sound. I think Rob's good on some tracks, but he feels he's not pushing himself. And it seems to lack a shape and form, this album. I quite like Dragonaut. I don't think it's the best opener to a Priest album. If you think Priest, think about those opening tracks. Even on to like Nostradamus, Prophecy, Creation, Dawn of Creation, brilliant. Judas is Rising, Ram It Down, Turbo Lover, even albums, but point eventually heading out the highway, even albums people don't like as much, but this album doesn't start with anywhere near the strongest track, and then the second track, Redeemer of the Souls, it's saying, I like the track, but I'm just not keen on it. Just going back to the mix, the bottom end's so far on this. I had it on in my car. Normally I have the bass up on 5. I had to turn this down to 2. Now why is this? This comes out in an era where people are still downloading tracks. There's still this thing, people are listening on shitty phones. Streaming hasn't quite taken hold, and the whole Bluetooth speaker thing. So a lot of metal bands around this time were kind of mixing for bad speakers. So examples would be A Different Kind of Truth, Van Halen 2012. Forevermore 2011 by Whitesnake, Good to Be Bad 2007 Whitesnake. Albums of excessive muddy bottom end to me, but when you filter that through a crappy speaker, it probably sounds alright. But if you're someone like me who buys CDs, so that's my theory with this. Just going through the other tracks, obviously Halls of Valhalla, Sword of Damocles, really good. Never got on board with March of the Damned. I should just say on this album as well, sometimes there's a lack of pre-choruses and good pre-choruses. So, Priest write really good bridges. March of the Damned just goes into a kind of fairly flat chorus. I quite like the riff. There is a good song in there, it just needs more work. And there's that weird trio, Down in Flames, Hell and Back, and Cold Blood. I really like Cold Blood. The other two, I do like them, but not as much. Then you've got Metalizer, which has just got a crazy mix on it. It kind of changes. Oddly enough, I think that's one of Rob's best vocal performances on the album. He's really going for it. I do kind of like the track. It's a bit daft, but it's cool. But the mix is really poor to me. Then you've got Crossfire. When I was listening to that, I used to quite like that track, but it just kind of feels like the album doesn't need it. It's kind of in there because it's like, well, let's try this. Then you get a couple of Secrets of Dead's quite interesting, quite like production on that, better mixing on that, and then Battle Cry, a good battle metal track. Although, again, I think Rob's vocals could do a bit more work, kind of disguising his screams a bit. And then it finishes with The Beginning of the End, which is a nice ballad, but again, not one of those great finishing tracks for a Priest album. You know, sometimes you get those really corking tracks. So I'm kind of like a 6.5 out of 10 on this. I liked it more when it came out, but I never loved it. So my next choice is Angel of Retribution. I was mad for this album when it came out. I would given it, you know, put it in my top 6 Priest albums, but I was just so pleased Halford was back. Listening now, I have done, or will be doing a review of it for its 20th anniversary eventually, so I'll probably go into more detail in that. I think it's a kind of game of two halves. It's got kind of 5 really top tracks and then maybe 6. The other ones seem less certain. It seems to maybe lack a little focus, and then you've got Loch Ness, which remains like a crazy folly to me. You know, you spent 13 minutes on that track. You could have done just a shorter track that's really good, or done 2 other tracks. Just my take, but the band were finding a way back. So I actually picked Nostradamus above that at 15. Again, controversial. I've got problems with tracks. The problem with album is it's too bloated, and it focuses on things you don't need to, like Lost Love, New Beginnings. You don't need those tracks in. The key thing with Nostradamus that's interesting to in a metal context is his prophecies and his rejection by the establishment. And his rejection by the establishment, I assume it's the Catholic Church, is interesting because, you know, metal itself has had battles with the establishment, if you think about the PMRC, and that's something metal fans can relate to in a sense, daft. I don't need a soppy love song like Lost Love. I certainly don't need New Beginnings, which is kind of a drabby sort of Pink Floyd thing. Other than that, if you take those out, a few of the instrumentals, it would pare it down. I think they needed to look at paring this down and get it on one disc. And you would only have needed to lose 10 minutes to do that. That would have sharpened it up. I feel there's some mixing issues with it, but I do think Rob gives a great vocal performance. I think KK and Glenn do some really good solos on things like Conquest. Future of Mankind's got that great harmony. I think the title track's got a great harmony solo. You got Exile, Solitude, great tracks. Persecution, really good. Revelations, of course, the 2 opening tracks. And I do like some of the interludes. So, you know, I've always had a lot of time for this album, but I completely understand people like, Jesus Christ, I just haven't got enough time to listen to this album. So my number 14 choice is Rock'n'Roller. Again, doesn't sound like much like Judas Priest, but it's been in my life since 1981. That's when I first got my copy of it. I've never disliked any tracks, and I do kind of like the, you know, I think One for the Road and the track are really cool. Cheetah, Never Satisfied. I've really got into Run of the Mill recently, and it's got that weird Winter Suite. It is what it is. It's a 70s heavy rock album. It's not a heavy metal album. So Judas Priest, you know, over the time, with Nostradamus, they made a symphonic metal album. I should just go backtrack on that and say it would have been better with real orchestra as well. Not that Don Airey doesn't do a great job, but Rock'n'Roller, it's a blues rock album, more like Nazareth or Wishbone Ash, early Thin Lizzy. you know, it's not metal, which brings me to number 13, Turbo. Again, this isn't a heavy metal album, it's a glam metal album. I've always really liked it. I loved it when it came out. I can see why people didn't like it. I think it begins and ends with two of the best tracks the band ever did, Turbo Lover and Reckless. When I went to see Priest recently, Turbo Lover went down so well. It's just weird that track just keeps, you know, getting traction. But you got Locked In, which is a great track, Private Property. Yeah, Parental Guidance and Rock You All Around the World, the Daft, but Rock You All Around the World's got a great guitar solo, good. Out in the Cold, excellent album track, mature sort of ballad, a bit AOR. And then Hot Full of Wild Nights and Hot and Crazy Days. Yeah, not as good, but I still quite like them. I think the production holds up really well. You know, if you're going to make an album with big snare and with electronic type sounds, I do think it's good. I think they took the time over it. I think what lets it down is the immaturity of the lyrics, particularly on Parental Guidance and Rock You All Around the World and Wild Nights and Hot and Crazy Days and Hot for Love. But I think the songwriting's good on it. So that's my choice. And then that brings you to Point of Entry. This is just shading. I think Turbo's a bit more consistent. You know, they set out to make a hair metal album. That's what they do, a glam metal album. Point of Entry is a hard rock album coming after the seminal metal of British Steel. I think with this album, it's an example of Priest album that has classic tracks, but isn't a classic. And my next choice will be like that. So, you know, Heading Out to the Highway, Desert Plains, Solar Angels, Hot Rockin', all absolutely corking tracks. Never liked Desert Plains live because I always play it too fast. Love the album version, perfect tempo. Where the Album Comes Unglued is with a kind of fairly drab second track, Don't Go, or Let's Go Good chorus. You got that really interesting track, Turning Circles, which I like. And then you got the weirdness of You Say Yes. I do like the middle section, but I do like the song. It's just such an odd song. All the Way, a track the album didn't need. You know, you could have probably lost that track and just done a shorter album. Troubleshooter I like, and I think On the Run's a cork, an ending track. I think one of the problems with this album, I think if you go back, you'll find on my classic album inspection, I think the running order could have been different. You know, they could have lost a track, written another track, changed the running order. It probably should have opened with Solar Angels, then gone in Heading Out of the Highway. Then Don't Go, or maybe put Turning Circles there, Hot Rockin', Desert Plains, more punchy, you know, get Troubleshooter On the Run still at the end and you just have a bit of a lull. But anyway, my first Priest album I bought, so it's always had affection. So my number 11 choice, this would be in my top 10, normally, is Defenders of the Faith. Again, an example, an album with classic tracks. The first 4 tracks are 4 of the best tracks the band's ever done. The problem with this album has always been side 2. Love Bites, good track. Played it in Leeds, not a great track. Some Heads Are Gonna Roll, always really like that. Cool Bob Halligan song. Eat Me Alive, a good up-tempo rocker with a nice Phrygian riff, just not top tier to me. Then Night Comes Down, nice ballad track. Then it tails off with a heavy duty Defenders of the Faith. Again, the running order, if the hand front loaded it so much, it might have flowed different. You can check out my classic album inspection to go into more detail on this, but I give it an 8 out of 10. There is people who put it higher and it is an all-time classic for them. For me, it's the last of a classic cycle of Priest albums in some ways from that 70s, 80s era, but it has classic tracks, it's not quite a classic. So my number 10 choice goes to Invincible Shield. So I'm picking this over Defenders because I think it's more consistent. I think the writing's strong, I think the production's amazing, the playing's amazing. The first 4 tracks are absolutely corking. Then something like Crown of Horns fits in really well. That track's really grown on me. Then you've got Trial by Fire, which works really well. Escape from Reality. Love Sons of Thunder. Yeah, it's a bit daft, but I love the meat and potatoes of it. Giants of the Sky, really good ending track with lovely lyrics. And then Fight of Your Life, is it? I don't know why they didn't put that on the full album. That would happily slot in about track 2, 3 or 4. I think that's great. The one Hollow Note is Vicious Circle. I just don't think the album needs that. And then you got The Lodger. Now, The Lodger's a lot of controversy with that track. I think it's really good. I think they do a great job, but it can only come at the end of the album. It can't be in the middle of the album. So for me, maybe with this album, I'd have just lost Vicious Circle and just had a 13-track album. Gates of Hell, I maybe don't need that, but I do quite like it. But I think it's great. It's a 9 out of 10. The title track is an instant classic. Firepower is my next choice at number 9. I had to listen to that, to Yin and Yang it with Invincible Shield, and I still feel that's more consistent. It hasn't got a bad track at the 14 I was actually enjoying Children of the Sun and Flame From even more than having the past. Lone Wolf's got a great vocal. It still does dip for me, but the album finishes really strongly with No Surrender and Sea of Red, really nice ballad. You've got the superb tracks like Traitor's Gate, Rising From Ruins, one of the best track the band's done. Spectre, excellent. Again, the first 4 tracks are great, particularly Never the Heroes. Just shading it could switch. So number 8 is going to Painkiller. So this is an album I moved up. I had to listen to this when it first came out. I wasn't totally into it, but as time's gone on, I've got more and more into it, more and more, and it's come to me. So pick this over Firepower, Invincible Shield, because I just think it is really consistent. Opening tracks, great. First 3 tracks off the bat. Leather Rebel gets better. Metal Meltdown, daft lyrics aside, it is ripping, proper speed metal. Brilliant middle section. Down, 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 down. Brilliant. And side 2 of the album was so good. Nightcrawler, Between the Hammer and the Anvil, Touch of Evil. Excellent melodic metal tracks. Then, what is it? Battle Hymn, is it? Right. Can't remember. Sorry. That's an okay instrumental. And then One Shot of Glory, what a great finishing track. I think, again, it opens with Painkiller and One Shot of Glory. It finishes the 2 best tracks in the album. So it's really grown on me, this album. And it is the last full classic Priest album. I do think Firepower and Invincible Shield might become sort of classics, but it's harder to judge those because it's not the classic lineup and it's out of the classic period. But the band really pulled it off with Painkiller and the great drums. So that's my choice. So here's my wild card entry at number 7. I'm putting Unleashed in the East. And my reason for this is, I think, even though it's a live album, it's such an important album in the Priest canon that a lot of people, this would be the first Priest album they got. It would be the first time they heard the Victim of Change, and that. This is how it was for me. And then Running Wild as well. I think I got this album before I heard the studio albums of Killing Machine and maybe Sin After Sin as well, even. Not sure, don't quote us on that. I lose track of time when my brother got them, but I got Unleashed in the East. But it's a key sort of gateway album of that time, along with Strangely Night, Live and Dangerous and Tokyo Tapes. These are the albums people would buy, and then it would mean they'd go back and find albums, or they would get into the new albums. So it's all-time classic. You've got to put it in there, like I say, as part of this 20. Then number 6, this album used to be a bit higher, but it's a mega album and a really important album in the band's legacy and history. It's Screaming for Vengeance. So obviously first 4 tracks incredible. Take These Chains is a really good melodic metal track. The 2 tracks that I do like, but just take it down to Pain and Pleasure and Fever. Fever's very well constructed. It's got that great middle section. Pain and Pleasure, I do like it. I like the chorus. I just always found it a bit stompy. It just didn't kind of end side 1 really well. And then coming after Take These Chains, which is kind of dipping down, it just felt I wanted side 1 to finish with more energy. Then you get Screaming for Vengeance, You Got Nothing Coming, obviously, Fever. And then it finishes with Devil's Child, one of my all-time favourite kind of slightly deeper Priest cuts. And my favourite ever KK Downing solo. So I got that when it came out as a kid. So my number 5 choice is Sin After Sin. So this has kind of moved up a position or 2. Sinner, Diamonds and Rust, Starbreaker maybe my favourite Priest track of all time. Then the excellent balladry of Last Rose of Summer. Side 2, Call for the Priest, Let Us Pray, Call for the Priest, amazing. Top double kick drum work by Simon Phillips, really important track in the development of metal. Then the superb Raw Deal with Rob Halford's excellent sort of S&M Fire Island lyrics. I didn't know anything about Fire Island really, and then I watched American Horror Story. So really interesting. Then you've got Here Come the Tears, a good sort of ballad, and then Dissident Aggressor, probably at that point the heaviest track ever done by any metal band ever, I think. A great record. So my nose itching. Number 4 choice is Killing Machine. Killing Machine's a great record. I think its eclecticism can kind of work for and against it. Sometimes you're not always sure where you're at with it, but It's a great sounding record. I mean, it's the first heavy metal album to kind of, you know, the production, the sound, they get it right, and that's what bands will kind of copy moving through from there on in. And Priest obviously started to perfect it with the album that comes later, Delivering the Goods, Rock Forever, Love Evening Star, Take on the World is decent, Hellbent Forever classic. Great tracks like Burning Up, Killing Machine, really good album tracks. Running Wild, Green Man Unleashed, prefer the live version. For the Dawn, lovely KK solo, nice ballad. And Evil Fantasies, a really interesting end track with a fantastic drum sound on that track. I don't know how they got that, but that drum sound, listen to it, that's a great sounding track. Number 3 choice, I kind of moved this back, you know, Killing Machine was 3, South System was 4, but I've kind of had a think, and I'm putting British Steel at number 3. Simply for, you know, not only is it a great record, it's really consistent. Rapid Fire, Metal Gods, Grinder, Breaking the Law, Grinder, brilliant. I get bored of hearing Breaking the Law live, never bored of it on the vinyl because the groove's so good. Okay, United, Take on the World Part 2, it takes a dip, but I think it's a decent track, 6 out of 10, as I do with Take on the World. You don't have to be old wise to be wise, one of the best album cuts the band ever did. Living After Midnight, still like to hear it on the record, great groove, great melody. The Rage, one of their best deep cuts, and finishing with Steeler. Again, Rapid Fire Steeler, what a perfect beginning and ending to the album. You know, an all-time classic, a great access to metal album. You know, if you want to get into metal, get this on. So number 2 and number 1's been hard, but recently I've kind of switched and then switched back, but I've decided to switch again. So at the moment, Sad Wings is number 2. There's nothing really to say about this album. It's one of the most important albums in the history of heavy metal, as is the number 1 album, Stained Class, and that is my number 1 choice. I think what shaded Sad Wings, Stained Class over Sad Wings is just that extra level of consistency. What always dropped this album was Invader and Hero's End, the 2 tracks that finish each side. But Invader's really grown on me. I just think Side 1's so good at this album. And then Hero's End, such an interesting ending track. You know, you've got that great solo at the end, breaking down into feedback, that middle section. You know, tracks like Saints in Hell, White Heat, Red Hot, you know, they're brilliant deep cuts, as are Deceiver and Dream of Deceiver. It's such a close thing, this could switch. But, you know, in the space of 2 years, you know, Priest pretty much kind of got out of the Sabbath purple thing with Sad Wings, and then they showed how metal could look with the imagery and how it should go. But by the end of that tour, they're starting to wear the studs and leather, and you know, it's the first album I think where it kind of shows what's going to happen when you wob them and so on. So that is my 19 studio albums ranked with a wildcard entry of Unleashed in the East. I mean, Unleashed in the East could be higher. It's so perfect, you know. But I think I'm happy with that at the moment. You know, it can change. So I hope you enjoy that. Remember to share and subscribe. And if you're interested in classic album inspections, you know, go to Mailbox Guitar Tuition. Okay, thanks for checking it out, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you.